Let's talk single crochet ribbing. I will talk mostly about the math at the end, but I really like how single crochet in the back loop only makes this ribbing. I really hate making a ribbing piece and sewing it on later, which a lot of designers recommend, and I hate that. So I'm going to show you in this video how to make your single crochet back loop only ribbing, but at the same time joining it to your piece as you go so that there's not a ton of finish work at the end. So let's jump right in. We're going to pretend that this swatch is a sweater. I tend to use ribbing on sweaters, on garments. I use it on hems. I use it on sleeve hems. I use it around neck edges. I use it a lot. And I wish I could show you this sweater that I just finished, but I can't because I sold the rights to somebody else. So, pretending that this is a sleeve, and I'll be honest, I also tend to do this after I've already sewn my sleeve seams up, but again, I'm grabbing a swatch that I have to make both of our lives easier. So you can see I put a slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to join my yarn with a slip stitch. You will also notice that when I put my foundation row in of whatever stitch it is, I worked in the back bump of the chain instead of the front. So I have this nice, neat edging waiting for me to stitch into. So I've joined my yarn. I'm going to put 7 single crochets in my ribbing, so I'm going to chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's my 8 single crochets. Now, for my first row, I'm going to single crochet in the second chain from hook. And in each of the chains across, that's going to give me 7 single crochets, and I'm going to work in the back bump because I always do. I just think it gives me a better look 99 times out of 100. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. Normally don't have a problem with this yarn, but I've crocheted this section so many times. I feel like the yarn's just gonna fight with me. 6 and 7. Now I'm going to go to the next naked stitch, or a stitch that doesn't have anything on, and I am going to put a slip stitch in there. Now I'm going to the next stitch and putting a slip stitch there. So that's 2 slip stitches in a row, and that slip stitch and turn is going to replace the chain 1 and turn that I'm going to do on the outer edge. So now I'm going to work my 7 single crochets in the back loop only. So only in the back loop. That's going to give me my ridges that make it look like ribbing. 2. So here's my 2 loops. I'm only working in the back loop. 3, 4, 5. Again, this yarn is not normally this splitty. I have just worked it to death and it's angry with me. All right, let's try that again. 5. I'd be angry too. It's working way too hard. 6, 7. At the end of this row, I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to work back up towards my sweater, once again working in the back loop only. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I'm looking for the next naked stitch. I'm going to put a slip stitch, and I'm going to slip stitch and turn. slip stitch in the next stitch, turn the work, single crochet in the back loop, back the other way. That is honestly all there is to this. Now, is there a little bit of nitty-gritty to think about with the math? Sure there is, and we're going to talk about that in just a couple minutes. So I'm going to jump off camera. I'm going to put some more rows on here so you have a bigger piece to look at, and then we will talk about the math. So let's talk about the math a little bit now that we have a few rows on here and you can see what we're doing. So if I wanted longer ribbing, all I would have to do is chain out more at the beginning and have more single crochets in each of my rows. Does it have to be an odd number because I had 7? Nah, it could be 8, it could be 10, but I like an odd number, so that's how I do it. It's important to note that single crochet back loop only ribbing does not have the same amount of elasticity as knit ribbing. It's not going to stretch way out and then snap right back the way knit ribbing does. If you want it to be tighter, you can use a smaller hook here than you did for your project. And I do that pretty often. If I'm doing a sweater, I tend to go down one hook size for my ribbing just to keep it drawing in. Now, if you don't want to draw it in at all, you would change the speed at which you were going across the bottom. And by that I mean, if you look at this and we have this nice little edge, this is where I'm joining my work when I'm crocheting in this direction, and then I go up to the next stitch and I'm going in this direction, right? How we learned. If I want there to be more rows on the bottom, by which I mean I do not want it to pull in at all, I want it to be the same width as the piece that I'm working on, instead of going into a naked stitch every time, you can go into a stitch more than one time. I wouldn't do it every single time because then I think it's going to flare out and be ruffly. But if you feel like it's drawing in too tight when you're going for your second slip stitch, actually, now that I say that, I think I would do it when I was going into my first slip stitch. If I was doing a row in this direction, instead of going into a naked stitch, I'd go into the stitch that I already worked in and then go into a naked stitch for the next one. That's going to pull these little ridges a little closer together. That is going to mathematically give you more rows on your piece, which is going to prevent it from drawing it at all. You have to be careful though. You don't want it to sort of flare out at the bottom because that is not an attractive look unless that is something you're specifically going for. So thanks so much for joining me once again. I'm Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life Publishing. Feel free to blop over to the blog because I enjoy it when you visit me there. You can sign up for the newsletter, you can see some cool patterns, and I'll see you again here on YouTube real soon. Thanks, bye-bye.